All right. Check 1, 2. This is your boy, Mr. Tony Maceo, coming back at you again. And today I have a very special guest. He's been here before. Mr. Shah is a historian, a scholar, a warrior, a documentarian, and just an all around good brother. Welcome back to the center of the board. Let's talk about one other person. And, well, maybe one other person. Let's talk about your teacher. I call him Pie Made, the chief professor, Yahudah Shem Yahudah. Who is he? Where did he come from? And what is his martial art of choice? What is his specialty?
Now, I'm going to say this, and when I speak about the chief professor, some would get the impression that I'm only speaking so highly about him because he's my teacher. But that's not the case. He is my teacher because of these things. Because when I was going through the martial artists here in New York, his name didn't really come up much, and he wasn't on my radar. I found out later why, but I had no desire really to interview him because I really didn't know who he was. His claim to fame to me was being on the famous videotape series, The Fighting Concepts of Professor Moses Powell, where he famously took the brunt of Moses Powell's techniques.
Shem, come out. I was there.
I ran into him because he lives not far from me. I ran into him on the street. And I had finished all of the interviews. And he began to give me a history that I hadn't gotten from anybody. And let me jump forward before I jump back and say this before I forget, that I interviewed over 40 black martial artists right here in New York. And I say, and I've been saying, that out of the 40, he would be at the top. He is the only martial artist that I know that has never done anything else since the time he was a teenager. He's only taught martial arts. With him, that's all he's ever done, similar to Dr. Moses Powell. Dr. Moses Powell, who was his teacher, never did anything else but teach and train martial arts his whole life. The chief professor is the #1 foremost authority in the world of Dr. Moses Powell's material. And then when Dr. Moses Powell came up with the title of chief professor, Shem Yahudah was the first chief professor. Now, and when I met him, I had forgotten that when I was doing my interviews, I had heard very early on that there was a spiritual healing aspect to Dr. Moses Powell's work of Sanuces Jiu-Jitsu, his martial art. And I would ask people about that when I interviewed them. And I didn't realize that after asking the question so many times and not being able to get an answer, I had unconsciously stopped asking the question until I met the chief professor. He said that, you know, most people that learn martial arts, they learn for 2 reasons. They want to learn how to fight, or they want to learn how to fight better. And when a young man starts studying martial arts, he's not really thinking about spirituality and healing. But when that young man grows up to be an old man and he becomes a teacher, guess what? He can't teach spirituality and healing because he didn't learn it when he was a student. But the Chief Professor did. So much so that at a certain point, when he was teaching me, he began having seizures. And come to find out, he had a tumor in his brain that traversed both hemispheres that was the size of a lemon. And he went to Cornell University, and the brain surgeon who literally wrote the book on brain surgery did the surgery. And by the time they finished with him, they had to rewrite books and they had to change their perspective because they've never seen anybody. Now, this is the top guy, had never seen anyone come out of a brain surgery like he did. When he came out of brain surgery, now normally once the surgery is done, when they wait for you to wake up, that's when they find out what you can't do anymore. Because they're messing around in your brain. They don't know if they've taken your eyesight, if you're able to talk, if you're able to walk. The Chief Professor never lost consciousness, and he actually came out of that surgery arguing with his wife. The doctors were standing around, and he made a statement, and the doctors jumped. They looked at, he had two of his students there, and the doctors asked them, what did they say? They said, that wasn't us, that was him. And they were startled that he was even talking. And what was he telling them? He was telling his students how to arrange him in the bed, because he said the way that they placed him in the bed after the surgery, his body wasn't aligned for optimal healing. So he started telling, this is immediately after a brain surgery, he's instructing his students on how to position his body. His wife at the time saw them interfering with him and she got upset. His student had to pull his wife to the side and tell her that you have to understand something about your husband. Your husband is a master of physiology. That's what he does. These doctors don't do that. We're moving him based on his instruction. I watched him. I was with him one day, and they had to put 21 probes on his head because he was having pain. But let me say this about the pain. This same student went to the doctor at one point and told the doctor to increase his pain medication. The doctor pointed to the chart. You know, at the chart they have the different expressions that are indicative of the different levels of pain.
Right,
and
right.
Said, why would we change his pain medication? Look at him, because he was sitting there very serene. So his student told the doctor, said, you don't understand. This man has been managing pain for 40 years.
I feel bad doing this, but I'll get over it. Sure. I can feel the energy in my finger, you know? I know he's being hurt. It's not just smothering, also there's pain because there's pressure here. See it? Bad move. I'll do it again. He know he can't feel anyway.
He's never gonna show you what you're waiting for on those charts, but I'm telling you, he's at about a 7 or 8 now. For the last couple of days, he's been managing his own pain. But you need to give him something, because eventually he's gonna get tired. And when he gets tired, he needs to have some of your stuff to mitigate some of that pain. And the nurse said, you know what, we're gonna postpone this procedure because you didn't come here to suffer. But the doctor came in and said, no, we shouldn't postpone it because you shouldn't be in this kind of pain. And we need to see if you're having brain seizures. So he listened to that. That made sense to me. He said, okay, go ahead. So what they did, they had 2 nurses working on him at the same time, applying those 21 probes. I was the only one in the room. He sat there on the bed with his hands like this. Every so often, his wife would come up and she would say, how you doing, Yahudah? And he would quote Moses Powell. He said, think, believe, and it is so. That's how he answered his wife. The other 2 times he came up with 2 different quotes from his teacher. I'm saying that to say that I watched a man who has devoted his life not only to martial arts, but to a martial arts system developed by another black man. And I watched him use the material that he got from his teacher, his brother, and not only come out of a brain surgery to the point where he baffled the doctors, but in the midst of being in excruciating pain, when asked how he was doing by his wife 3 times, all 3 times he quoted his teacher. That's a martial artist. And I witnessed that. And when they finished that procedure, he was tired. He was exhausted. The first thing he said to me, he said, I just increased my pain threshold. And I asked him, I couldn't tell. I said, you in pain that whole time? He said, hell yeah. So, and he was laying in the bed. He was exhausted. And he began going through the roster of martial artists in New York. Almost like a movie, like he felt like he was going to die. I could barely hear him. But he's telling me about everybody, what to look out for, who's who and what's what. And then at a certain point, he asked me, he said, so what have you been working on? Meaning from what he taught me. So I told him, and he said, show me. So his bed is here. It just so happened there was a nice bit of space over on his left side. And I began going through the fan block, forearm block.
Bang, bang.
And from his hospital bed, he started teaching me, adding on. In fact, I'm going to tell you what he taught me. Dr. Moses Powell, we were talking about gangs earlier, as a teenager, one of the things that led to his greatness as a martial artist is that the minute he was introduced to martial arts, the filter that he ran everything through was, would this work in a gang fight? Would this work against 10 people? Would this work on a staircase? That's where that modern aspect came from, because that was his personal filter. And you know that back in the 50s, they had switchblades. So Dr. Moses Powell had a technique, I guess you would call it his own personal technique. They call it thumb blade, where he would snap his fingers and he had the nail on his thumb. He grew it a certain way that when he snapped his fingers, he could cut you with it. I was introduced to that.
With the fingernail.
With the fingernail.
Wow.
I was introduced to that by the chief professor when he was laying on that hospital bed. Because when I did the fan block, forearm block, he showed me to add on to what he showed me, the thumb blade. And not only did he show me the thumb blade, he showed me how to put body weight behind it from his hospital bed. And as he was teaching me, his voice got stronger and stronger till he sounded like he does on those videos that we do.
As a matter of fact, let's take a look at this. That would be a good time to let's look at one of those videos if you will.
Sure.
All right, let's go.
Understanding that all these tools are dangerous. All these tools can destroy. You end up face toe to toe. All of this based on going after his ass. Face him. Timing. Move the hand over. There you go. So work on distance for contact. Like that. You're making an opening on that person's body. Wow. Before he can regain the posture or regain his balance, you've already given him some pain. Down that shit. I got a problem with that. Movements, angles, steps, positions. What type of series one? Beat him to the spot. Turn. Capture. Set. So I'm learning something about me as I learn something about the person's body too. Converted muscle. That's your target. The converted muscle for the block. You have to optimize the muscle. The body do what the body do. Even if I cut across the forehead, with the fingers. Say his stomach stick out this far. I need to cut it in this far to get a slice of it. That won't make his ass turn. Oh shit. As I work these tools, they give me different things.
That's your teacher. That's your teacher.
I never really look at that one because that's one of the few that I'm in. I'm not in a lot of my stuff, but I'll tell you something about when I was putting that together. My wife was looking over my shoulder, and she said, "It's good that you're doing that for people so that people could see Grandmaster Shem." She called it Grandmaster Shem before he had the operation. And I looked at her. I said, "Before the operation?" I said, "That was 2 weeks ago. So everything you're seeing, that's after he had the brain surgery." He's such a consummate martial artist that several years ago, my back had went out on a Saturday. In fact, it was my birthday. So I got dressed up and I said, let me just go over and just, pay respects to the chief professor and, just go over while they train. So the guys in the room training, I'm sitting in the chair next to the chief professor. And I don't know if you want to say the mistake, but I started asking them questions about what they were doing. He told me to take the chair. I took the chair and I put it in front of a guy, the guy that was working, Barty. In fact, same brother that's in the video, Barty. And he proceeded to train us both for the next 2 hours with me in the chair. He wasn't teaching me something different. He was teaching me the same thing he was teaching Barty, and he was just showing me how to do it from a chair. Even when he was in the hospital after the brain surgery, I would come to see him. And since he was relegated to a chair, that's why he taught me how to move from a chair.
Okay. For war purposes. Wow! So I'm not telling you that no.
So even when I would come to visit him, not even coming there to train, I would end up training.
Whether you slap it with your fingers or your palm, slap it.
That's a martial artist.
It is. Let's look at one more clip from the chief professor.
Men go to war. Women and children fight. That way tomorrow they can be friends and all that other little good stuff. The system is designed to take no prisoners. There are no prisoners of war. We take no prisoners. When we engage, we only engage in one time. The Dojo Kun says, as we walk in peace, and fear shall not prevail. So the last thing you want is to engage with somebody that studies the same thing that you do. Studying from the same person that you do. We fight with those that fight with us, and if we must fight, we fight to the death. And if it's advanced to, we fight to the wall and back. That's what the term to the wall and back is defined as. Taking no prisoners.
To the wall and back. Taking no prisoners.
Keep your hands in your pocket. Keep your hands to yourself and it's all good. Don't keep your hands in your pocket and to yourself. Then you're going to get some other stuff. Okay?
He sounds like a New York martial artist.
Don't swing above his head. Swing at that motherfucker.
He has the feel of a New York martial artist.
I don't want to struggle with you. No. I'm going to break your shit up.
He has the intent. There is something very resolute in the way that man teaches.
So we're working that body. You're making sure that there is nothing left of that body.
Because now with him, you got to be prepared to put in at least 3 hours every time.
I'm not dropping his. That means I got to pick that shit back up again.
He said anything less than 3 hours is a waste of your time and my time.
But I gotta do this for 3 hours, right? So 3 hours, oh man, shit, be black and blue. Okay?
So every time you go see him, it's a minimum of 3 hours that and there's no breaks. There's no breaks, there's no rest. And he doesn't even allow you to wipe the sweat from your face. He see you wiping the sweat off your face, and that's mine. But purpose of that is to train yourself so that when you're in actual combat, even the stinging of your own sweat doesn't stop you.
Stomp him, step on his face, his head. Wow! Ain't no mercy.
Serious martial arts.
Relax. Sink.
You better than me. I don't know if I could stand up to that.
Boom! Yes?
I don't know if I can stand up to that because that looks brutal.
Okay, so what you got now? What you got now?
And there were times where he and I would be in the park, and I would try to introduce people to him that said they want to train. Without question, his first question to them would always be, "How are you with pain? Because this shit hurts." And now that's not something that a person that's trying to get students would say. So when you call him Pai Mei, I told you, I started calling him that too because he reminds me of those Chinese grandmasters in the movies that you had to damn near beg them to teach you.
Master, teach me Kung Fu.
And most people that I've tried to introduce to him, they don't even get to the point where they even speak to him on the phone, much less stand in front of him on the mat, because he doesn't make it easy. And it was sort of easy for me because of the reputation, the respect he had for my teacher, Latif Sadiq. And that question of how are you with pain, he asked me that one time, but he never let me answer. He asked me, let me ask you a question. How are you with pain? And as I was about to answer, he said, oh, you must be okay with pain. You with Professor Latif.
Wow.